Hello there, I'm Nafisa Latic. Welcome to the program. The chronic lack of workforce is becoming a big issue for the Balkans. With its low wages and stalled EU membership, it's especially noticeable in Montenegro in the midst of the summer season. The country, for whom one of the main sources of income is tourism, is struggling to find local labor. Many young people don't want to be underpaid tourism workers and are looking for better jobs in EU states, especially in neighboring Croatia. And that leads to an increasing number of foreigners coming to Montenegro to take their spot. Mirjana Miladinovic went to Budva to speak to some of them.
Hello, how are you?
Kajendra Pandi arrived from India to Montenegro 2 years ago in a search of better paying jobs. Pandi now works in this hotel in the coastal city of Budva. He worked in Dubai before, but says he found a peaceful heaven with refreshing winds in this small Balkan country.
I love to work here. The people was from the Montenegrins, very good people, very friendly, very kind people. The place was good for me. You know about Dubai, it's very hot, the summertime, but here it's okay. The summer same like India. I managed to live here.
It wasn't just the favorable climate which made Pandi fall in love with Montenegro and work here.
Dubai, there is minimum hour 9 hours, but we cannot work 9 hours, more than 11, 12 hours. They're paying extra also. Sometimes they're not paying extra, sometimes they divide the hours and they're giving vacation. But here, they're totally different. They work every day like a 7 hours work and 1 day free. It's good. If I work extra per day, like a 2 hour, 3 hour, they pay me extra also. It's good.
In the kitchen we were welcomed by Chef Halil Brahim, who came to Montenegro from Turkey. For Halil, it was much easier to fit in.
Ja znam Montenegro, ja radim 2 godina ovde, ja znam sve.
I learning little bit how to greet the people, dobro večer, dobro jutro, dobar dan, kako ste. It's good. It's very easy for me because I'm quick learner. That's why I learn everything quickly.
What we saw is that there are not enough local workers from Montenegro to meet the needs of the tourist market. Montenegro, whose budget mainly relies on tourism, has a problem with local labor. Montenegrins do not want to be waiters, bartenders or cooks in Montenegro because they believe they will be better paid elsewhere. And they mostly go to neighboring Croatia. They say since becoming an EU member offers better pay and condition. And tourism workers say the Montenegrin market prefers foreign labor.
Jedan moj menadžer koji se ja pitao kako, jer mi smo nedavno počeli, prije 2-3 mjeseca, već će broj da uzimamo radnu snagu sa strane, kako reaguju, kakvi su. Kaže, vidi se, oni su došli ovdje da rade. Veoma važna i tačna rečenica. Ali što donose novo? Što se sad to već vidi na našim radnicima. Naši radnici počinju polako da se oni mijenjaju. Razumijete? Došla je konkurencija.
But as happy as he is about that, he says he is equally unhappy.
Jer to su mogli naši ljudi da zauzmu ta mjesta i da zarađuju pare. A ne da idu po svijetu gdje za toliko posla koji ga tamo rade i koji će ga raditi, u Hrvatskoj isto 12 sati radni dan. Svaki dan. I nemaju slobodnog dana. Za te pare da je toliko ovdje radio, ovdje je možda i više zaradio.
The Montenegrin Employment Agency website and publicly available data show an imbalance. Many economists, lawyers and doctors are awaiting employment, while cooks, waiters and bartenders are in demand, but are unavailable.
Što mi majka rekla, sine, ajde spremi ručak, ja ću te naučiti. Ako ti to ide od ruke, da završiš za kuvara, pa da postaneš vrsni kuvar, sine, ti ćeš imati jedan lijepi posao i cijeloga života ćeš bogato da živiš i bit ćeš poštovan i cijenjen. Jer kuvar je danas od 4, 5, 6, 7 hiljada eura plata. Vrhunski kuvar. Predsjednik države Crne Gore ima 2,5 eura platu.
While Montenegrin authorities struggle with the imbalance between supply and demand in the labor market, Pandi plans to build his life and future in Montenegro.
Next summer, I plan to bring my wife here. If we get any good job for her, I will be bringing my wife.
Officials predict a record-breaking tourism season this year and a return to pre-pandemic levels. But Pandi says the good tourism requires synergy and cooperation from everyone. And if they want to make the tourists happy, they need to make their workers happy first. Mirjana Miladinović, Across the Balkans, Podgorica, Montenegro.
In the past, a relatively small number of labor shortages were filled by workers from neighboring countries. Typically, Bosnians, Serbians and Albanians would go to work seasonally in Croatia. But as people are leaving the region, foreign workers are coming from other countries as well, and this is causing a significant demographic shift. For example, just last year, nearly 15,000 workers from Nepal immigrated to Croatia. Let's take a closer look at the numbers of work permits issued for foreign workers over the last decade. In just 7 years, the number has gone up from 3,000 in 2016 to 160,000 in 2023. There was a sharp drop to 48,000 in 2021 after the Aliens Act was passed, but the numbers rose back to 109,000 the next year. The Aliens Act is a market test system which replaced Croatia's former quota-based system for regulating work permits for third country nationals, and to ensure that any unemployed Croatian or EU citizen who has the qualifications for a job is not left out. This year, statistics say the number of registered foreign workers could reach almost 200,000, and at this rate, by 2030, every fourth worker in Croatia could be a foreigner. Joining me now is Margareta Gregurević. She's a senior research associate at the Institute for Migration and Ethnic Studies in Zagreb. Great to have you with us. Now, what are the potential social, economic, and cultural effects of this shift? As we just heard their predictions that by 2030, every fourth worker in Croatia will be a foreigner.
So the impact is that Croatia is actually becoming truly multicultural. However, the question is whether we are an immigration country, and this cannot be based only on the number of immigrants, but also on the mechanism of their inclusion in society. So we have not fully worked out this domain yet. One of the most relevant factors here is the origin of foreigners who come to Croatia, where it is important to invest more effort in designing integration policies for citizens coming from countries that are culturally more distinct from Croatia. Until now, the majority of foreign workers came to Croatia from neighboring countries, primarily from Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia, but we share the similar tradition and language with them, and therefore their integration is easier. However, in the future, I think that we can expect more foreign workers from Asian countries, since the labor pool from the neighboring countries has spilled over into the EU, so we no longer offer them incentives to come here, like the people coming Asia who's working.
Will that be more challenging now that Croatia is used to, as you said, people from the region coming, but this is completely new thing. Are any measures been imposed, or is Croatia getting ready for this in any way, officially and strategically?
Well, strategically, we at the moment do not have any policy and strategy on migration or integration. We have the Aliens Act, as you mentioned, and we have the law on international and temporary protection. And this long-term migration strategy we have not yet adopted. However, some documents are in preparation. So also the updates of the Alien Acts have also been announced, but they were not yet adopted due to the spring elections. So we are expecting these strategies to be soon implemented.
And what's been the reaction from the local population to this novelty in the country, especially people living in the touristy areas that are used to seeing, let's say, people from the neighboring countries coming in?
The attitudes of local population from Croatians citizens, we can actually see and follow them based on the European social survey data. And practically they are pretty neutral to the arrival of immigrants in Croatia. So they are neither positive nor negative, and it's like steady situation since 2008. We witness every now and then some situations when people talk poorly about the immigrants coming to Croatia, but those are like, let's say, isolated cases at the moment. So the sentiment is overall neutral towards them.
Okay, Margareta Grigorevich, great to have you with us on Across the Balkans. I appreciate your insights for us. Serbia has seen a rise in the number of Russians coming to live and work there since the start of the war in Ukraine. Its traditional close ties with Moscow have made the Balkan country ideal for those looking to start a new life. The Serbian Interior Ministry says more than 200,000 Russians have arrived in the country over the last 2 years. And as Miodrag Sovid reports from Belgrade, many of them are planning to stay.
The vast majority's knowledge about Russia is no greater than of someone in the UK or in the Netherlands. You know, it's limited to cliches like vodka, balalaika, you know, was Yeltsin, Gorbachev, now it's Putin.
This is how tens of thousands of Russians who arrived in Serbia since the war in Ukraine erupted feel that their new neighbors from the Balkan countries see them. But let's step outside a cliche and see what their life really looks like. Here you go and you're welcome are not the only words Evgeny speaks in Serbian, but they are of utmost importance for his job. The 26-year-old is chief bartender in a Russian-owned bar in heart of Belgrade, and it has grown quite popular with the locals as well.
From the first place, we weren't oriented on the Russian auditory only. We don't even have a menu in Russian language. We have only Serbian and English.
One of the bar's regulars is a young Belgrader, Marija Takic, who was drawn to the place not because of her partly Russian heritage, but mostly because of her desire to help Russian exiles blend into Serbian society. That is why she runs workshops and Serbian language classes to help them integrate.
We have a lot to learn from them as well, because a lot of successful people came here and very educated people. And then as well, we don't want the people who have been living here for 2 years or plus that maybe, and who are planning on staying here, some of them, that they don't feel as an equal part of the society.
At first I thought that I don't need Serbian language to live here and so on, but after approximately 1 year, I realized that it's an important part of the life here.
I wanted to integrate from the start, even when I didn't know a lot of Serbian. I tried to find a Serbian hairdresser in my neighborhood, to do my pedicure, manicure, and to go to piazza to communicate with local people.
For centuries, Serbia and Russia have been united by deep fraternal links thanks to their Slavic and Orthodox heritage. Despite being an EU candidate country, Belgrade refused to join bloc's sanctions against Moscow, and large swaths of the population continue to back Putin's self-described war against the West.
The Kremlin's stance towards Ukraine has found a willing audience in Serbia, where simmering hatred towards NATO and the US has led many to side with Moscow. While most of Europe has sought to clamp down on Russian news outlets, they flourish in Serbia, and even state-backed media often repeat the Kremlin line.
But activists say most of the Russians who have arrived in Belgrade in recent years are either apolitical or opposed to Moscow's official line.
Meeting a Russian on the part of many Serbs is, Putin is great, long live Putin. That made many people feel uncomfortable and not really interested in integrating, because in making contacts with Serbs, because your likelihood of running into that is about 50%, and it's unpleasant. And why would you start your acquaintance with political arguments?
That is why newly arrived Russians formed what most of them describe as a parallel society. Belgrade is plastered with concert posters of artists from Russia, which are almost exclusively visited by the diaspora community. Last year, a Russian punk rock band filled a major Belgrade concert hall, with thousands in the crowd singing along to an anti-war song.
Ja njih ne smatram Rusama, oni nikako ne odgovara toj ruskoj duši. Onda ako oni sa takvim zadovoljstvom izdali Rusiju kad bila kao teško vrijeme, kako oni brzo potrčat u novo mjesto. Znači, meni to liči kao neka biomasa koja traži samo neki udobni kutak gdje bi njih niko ne čačkal.
Native Russian, Olga has lived in Serbia for decades and takes pride into not making friendships or contact with people who recently arrived. There was only one place in which the two worlds had no choice but to share the same spot, the polling station in Belgrade, where Russians could vote in the March elections.
There were probably about 15,000 people waiting in line at the polling station. Only 5,000 got the chance to vote. Of those 5,000, 90% for 4,500 voted against Putin.
Ja sam glasala na izborima, ja glasala za Vladimira Putina i u stvari u tom dugačkom redu vjerovatno не видела ни jednog čovjeka koji bi glasal za Putina. Pri tom što ja, opet kažem vam, prošla u Georgijevskoj trakici i svi ovi ljudi što stojili u tom redu, a oni mladi, da, oni ovako samo sklanjali glavu.
Politics aside, what most Russians we spoke to agree on is that full integration into Serbian society for most of them is difficult, not because of the effort to learn the language or settle into local traditions. To them, settling in Serbia means that they have come to terms with the fact that they are not returning to Russia, something only a few of them can imagine. Miodrag Sovilj, Across the Balkans, Belgrade.